I wanted to bring the product to market because I needed it. And if I needed it, so did other women. And really that was the whole crux of why I was so driven.
Welcome to Honest E-Commerce, a podcast dedicated to cutting through the BS and finding actionable advice for online store owners. I'm your host, Chase Clymer, and I believe running a direct-to-consumer brand does not have to be complicated or a guessing game. On this podcast, we interview founders and experts who are putting in the work and creating real results. I also share my own insights from running our top Shopify consultancy, Electric Eye. We cut the fluff in favor of facts to help you grow your e-commerce business. Let's get on with the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Honest E-Commerce. Today, I've got a great guest. She's an award-winning media personality and former professional athlete, a member of the EY Entrepreneurial Winning Women North American class, a Titan 100 recipient, and the founder and CEO of NULASTIN. Welcome to the show, Leah Garcia.
Wow. Sometimes when I hear that intro, I kind of want to look around myself and be like, who is that girl? That's fantastic.
No, you've been doing some amazing stuff.
Look at me go.
Awesome. All right. So for the folks listening to this or watching on YouTube, hello people. What types of products are you bringing to market over there at NULASTIN?
NULASTIN is an elastin replenishment company, and we're in the beauty space. So our core products are hair care and skin care. We launched with Lash and Brow, a serum that enhances longer, thicker, fuller looking lashes and brows. And then the scalp treatment came a little bit later, but we really focus on the skinification of the scalp at NULASTIN. That is our claim to fame.
That's amazing. Now, between working in the media and being a pro athlete, where did you have the time to come up with this business? What was going through, what was the inception where it went, maybe I need to do this?
Yeah, the aha moment was pretty damn clear. I was an aging woman in a television business who had been a former professional athlete. So you start losing a little bit of your edge, be it from wrinkles and thinning hair or the writing on the wall where you see that things are changing. And you want to stay relevant. You want to keep your job pretty much and I was introduced to this protein called elastin and immediately saw that no other brand was addressing this loss of elastin. So we'd been talking about collagen. We'd been talking about other matrix proteins, but I just serendipitously had met a microbiologist who had been working for bio companies and pharma and Amgen on tissue regeneration and wound healing. And the minute I realized that NULASTIN could A, help with my skin, but then B, once I realized that it was going to be essential for hair, I said, sign me up, please. Let me take this to everybody else who I know needs it.
That's amazing. And what year was that?
Well, I met the microbiologist in about 2012, and I actually invested $50,000 in an earlier iteration of the business because I was so hook, line, and sinker in with this. You spend your whole life as an entrepreneur, at least with that mentality where you're looking for something that's novel, something that has, it's a consumable. So there's going to be, replenishment and reorders. And I didn't want a Snuggie blanket. I didn't want a one and done or a different colored iteration. So I had found something that just had Leah written all over it. And that was 2012. And then by the time 2014 rolled along, that's when the Lash and Brow prototypes were introduced to me. And then by the time I got my shit together in 2016, I finally just said, all right, I'm starting this business. And I went and filed for a business license. And the date that is listed on my record is January 13th, 2016.
That's amazing. Now, was that $50,000 investment you made a few years before that? Was that just in the microbiologist and what he might be producing as, an advisor and as a fan of the product and a potential customer?
That's probably the best question anyone's ever asked me because no one's ever said, where did that money go?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Chase, it went bye-bye. It escaped everyone's wallet. It went into what was at the time Skin by NULASTIN, and it was run by not me. And the business pretty much imploded in the course. They had over $1 million in funding, and it imploded in about 6 months. And so it was a cautionary tale for me. But I kept in touch with the microbiologist, and then when the opportunity came about where I could take things into my own hands and maintain control of my own destiny, that's what I did. But I definitely learned a lot of really great lessons from that failure, as everyone does.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you got to make choices. Some of them will be right. Some of them will be wrong. But boy, do you learn quickly when it's wrong.
And they always say, right, if you're going to invest, don't invest unless you're willing and or able to lose the money. And it's funny because when I put the money in, I was like, well, say goodbye, right? You never want to believe that your money is going to be there at the end and that the promise will come through. But I actually, when I launched NULASTIN, I'm going to fast forward a second because I built the business up to $17.5 million before I hired my first employee by the time I launched. And then a group of Denver angels called me and said, we want to invest in your company. And I was like, I don't really need your money. But when they finally did put their blood, sweat, and tears in terms of cash, which is an angel investment into the business, I ended up getting a little over $500,000 from the angels. And then some friends and family wanted to jump in on that little round, which was a Series A. And so they came on board, and I am protecting their investment as if it is my lifeblood. So they are very lucky to have me at the helm because I am not going to let them down. I'm not going to let them be in the situation that I was in prior.
All right, let's walk it back to 2016. You have a prototype that you love, you file for the business, and you're going to go to market. How do you do that? How do you find customers that aren't your friends and family?
First of all, I didn't even have bottles to put product in. So 2016 was really me learning how to put a pitch deck together and try to find money. So I was scurrying all over the country begging. I was learning how to do pitch decks. I was trying to just find someone who'd be interested. And I don't know if do you know the story of Airbnb? You and I were chatting about Airbnb. Did you ever see their pitch deck?
I don't know if I've ever seen the pitch deck, but the story itself is so funny from what it was to what it is now. They like the air part of it. They were just throwing air mattresses in people's houses in the Bay Area because rent was so wild.
Right. But their first deck was just, I'm going to call it ghetto. It was nothing fancy. And the same with Uber. There was nothing fancy about the decks. And here I put all this fancy, copy and beautiful aesthetics into the deck, and I still couldn't get any traction. And then I just said, F it, I'll do it myself, and mortgaged my house and didn't take any money. And luckily I did have a side hustle. So my main job at the time was reporting for the Professional Bull Rider store. I wasn't making great money. You think you would, but you don't. But it was enough to where I had time on my hands to really focus on what I needed to do. But I just said, skin in the game, Garcia, just do it yourself. So I put my own self in the mix, and then I put that pitch together. Then one colleague did give me $50,000, and then that gave me the confidence to move on. And I ended up doing an Indiegogo campaign, ended up with 17,000 to really get my first packaging put together. And then it really was Chase, friends and family. And if you were somewhere around me, I would stick a camera in front of your face, and I would take a before picture of your lashes and brows. And then I'd take an after picture when I saw you next. And then I would beg you to let me post those on my website, which I built on Wix. Hello. Then I moved upward to a WordPress site. And then ultimately, when I finally got some help, went over to Shopify and then Shopify Plus. But boy, there's a lot of blue ocean when you think about my business model.
Well, first and foremost, if I was near you, you could use me as a dummy, put products on my face and take pictures. I don't care. My girlfriend does it all the time. But all right. So you do the Indiegogo campaign. What are your thoughts about that as, testing the waters about product market fit? I'm sure there's entrepreneurs out there that are like, should I do a Kickstarter, a crowdfunding thingy?
I wasn't thinking like that. It just, that part of it really, I wasn't getting that deep. I knew I wanted to bring the product to market because I needed it. And if I needed it, so did other women. And really that was the whole crux of why I was so driven to bring this to market. It just wasn't, how do I find the customers and then develop something that's going to fit them? It was, no, I've got the Holy Grail. You're going to want to jump on this moving train when I come on, when I come on the market. So I wasn't thinking the other direction. And I did it Indiegogo because that's kind of what people said I should do if I didn't have funding. And because I didn't have funding and I certainly had run out of, cold cash, something needed to give.
Absolutely. No, that's a very honest answer. And that's the name of the podcast, Honest E-commerce. Okay.
Can I tell you though how I really messed up on that Indiegogo campaign?
Yeah, we want to hear that. Okay.
So cautionary tales, I learned about the investment part of it, but I really was a bit, oh my goodness. I was so arrogant is really the best word for what I was, that I wrote all the copy myself, never had anyone check it, didn't do any regulatory. And so I went and I wrote it all down. And then when I started the Indiegogo campaign, they shut me down in 3 days. And I thought they shut me down because I didn't know why they shut me down, but I then started bullying my way through LinkedIn and every other platform to try to find the owners of Indiegogo and somebody to talk to me about why they shut my campaign down. And I was frenetic. So I ended up driving to San Francisco from the central coast of California, parked outside their offices, walked into the basement, snuck by the security, went up the elevator, landed on their floor, walked in with their foosball table and all of the young people having a really good time. And I looked like that movie Joy. And I walk in and I was like, I want some answers. You all shut me down. And I was so convinced that they had a glitch on their end. And this is that then they went back and they talked amongst themselves and they came back out. And this is my interpretation of what happened next. Hey, crazy lady, Stripe credit card shut you down. We didn't. You used structure function claims, which means I was claiming to grow hair. I was not improving the look of eyelashes. I was treating my copy as if I were a pharmaceutical drug. And there was no test. Anyway, I basically had to tuck my tail between my legs, leave, and laughed all the way back at what an idiot I was, how arrogant I was, and another really great lesson that I learned.
Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. And I'm going to remember that and I'm going to tell that to people outside of this podcast. So thank you so much for that gem, Leah. Okay. So Indiegogo campaign goes, you get your first round of product and you're selling it to your friends and family. When does it go beyond? What started to happen? When did it start to click?
I'll give a little shout out to a colleague of mine who really, he and I had worked together in the infomercial world. And he was a bit of a rainmaker. And so he'd kind of self-taught himself to work on Facebook ads at the time. And so we would get on the phone and craft the ad. But prior to that, I'd shot some video because I'd come from the television production background. So that was my forte, is how to be in front of a camera, how to fancy myself to be in marketing because I'd been in infomercials prior. So I knew that dog and pony show. But he and I wrote the first ad for a Facebook campaign and we put it out there I'm guessing that the first ad was a couple of $100 spent, and then ping, got the first order. Woo, there you go. And then it was just so amazing. And then we would run, in 1 year, we probably only had 3 ads that we ran the whole year with our limited campaign. And that first year we made $11,000. And that was the journey and how it started. And then the next year I moved on to getting help. Was that 2019, 2020? No, I was still doing it with he and I. Then we got to close to $3 million. And then I brought in an agency and then we catapulted to $7.5 million and then up to the $17 million mark. before iOS 14 changes.
I have been in business for nearly 20 years, and very few companies I have hired in that time have performed as well as Electric Eye. They have knowledgeable staff, and our project was delivered on time and on budget. Electric Eye has exceeded my expectations, and I look forward to working with them again. That is a direct quote from one of our clients at Electric Eye. Electric Eye is a Shopify Plus partner that has helped over 100 brands migrate, redesign, and optimize their stores since 2016. If you'd like to increase your conversion rate, average order value, and revenue per session, we are the true Shopify experts you've been looking for. Right now, we're offering a free diagnostic to qualified brands that reach out and mention the podcast. Visit electriceye.io today to schedule a call and send us a message. Find out why we have over 50 5-star reviews in the Shopify partner directory. Again, that's electriceye.io, electriceye.io. You're investing in paid traffic, email, influencers, you're doing everything, but your store's still not converting like you know it should. That's the hidden cost nobody's talking about. If you don't know why people aren't buying, you're constantly losing money. Whenever conversion rate optimization comes up with brands, the first thing I ask them at the agency is what they are using for analytics and behavior tracking. Heatmap.com is my go-to recommendation because it's the only platform I've seen that connects user behavior directly to sales. That kind of visibility is critical for e-commerce brands trying to grow. I tell every brand that we work with to install Heatmap. It shows you what's working and what isn't using real behavior data tied directly to revenue. You get live heat maps, session recordings, funnels, and attribution down to specific product pages. This isn't just another analytics dashboard, it's a revenue optimizer. And right now, Honest Ecommerce listeners get the hookup. They get a 14-day free trial. They get access to their ultimate 150-point CRO checklist. And as a bonus, you'll get a free setup by us over at Electric Eye when you ask for us to do so. So stop wasting another dollar guessing. Visit heatmap.com/honest. That's heatmap.com/honest and start seeing what your customers see, because clarity truly equals revenue. Let's be real. Sales tax is a nightmare. You didn't start an e-commerce brand to stay up late Googling tax laws or stressing over whether you filed in the right state. If you're still trying to DIY your sales tax, or worse, using a tool that leaves most of the work on your plate, you need to check out Zamp. Zamp is a fully managed sales tax solution built specifically for e-commerce brands. That means actual experts handle everything: registration, filings, remittances, all of it. Brands like Tushy, Glamnetic, and David are already using Zamp to get sales tax off their plate. Some Zamp customers spend as little as 2 minutes a month thinking about tax. Imagine that. No confusing pricing tiers, no surprise fees, just one flat rate to make the entire mess disappear. And yes, it works seamlessly with Shopify, Amazon, BigCommerce, QuickBooks, and more. So, if you're tired of sales tax headaches and want to stop risking penalties or audits, go to zamp.com/honest and get 3 months free. That's zamp.com/honest. Zamp.com/honest. That's amazing growth. And so what were some of those big changes in marketing and sales that allowed you to go from, $10,000. Obviously, it was the people involved. You've already mentioned that, but from $10,000 in year one to 3, 7, 14, what were some of the things that people should expect if they want to see that type of growth?
The crowded marketplace is a real thing, and skincare, I couldn't dig myself out of a hole with the skincare line, because it's just, how do you compete against the big brands? But the lash and the brow market really was my entryway. And that was not as crowded of a marketplace. It was easier to get traction. So I'd say my timing could not have been better with that particular product SKU. And those two products were my heroes, and they carried me through. So the marketing was more consistent, and it was less polished. So the less polished we were, the better we did. And then ultimately, we really started focusing on the user-generated content, which, at the time, you don't think you can afford UGC. And I certainly, even to this day, I haven't really dove into affiliate marketing and or influencer marketing much. That's just getting going for my brand. But the things that really mattered were the consistency, the commonality of the message, but not being super slick, just making sure that we were the real people talking to the real customers and delivering. And without sounding conceited, the reality is I still perform quite well on ads because of my authenticity and just the fact that I truly believe in what I'm saying and doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done the work. I am the customer. I overplucked my brows. I was aging. I'm 60 years old. So
absolutely. Now, Leah, you mentioned just now, you said that something you learned along the way with the marketing and then how you were presenting these ads is like, they didn't have to be so polished. How did you come to terms with that with someone that came from a polished media world?
Well, my first ad was so polished. It looked like, it was just too pretty. Everything was the lighting and the sound quality and, me standing on a section with the perfect dress on. Nobody wanted to see that. They just didn't want to see it. They would still stop and some of those ads did work. That's what I did for the Indiegogo campaign. But ultimately I came from infomercials. It just didn't work. It just didn't work for Meta.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know it at the time until I did know it. Once you learn that, you don't unlearn it.
Absolutely.
But Chase, here's the other thing about that. I think the same can be said for the website. Now, you want a website that converts. You want a website that looks good. But can I say that in my past, some of the awkwardest looking websites still perform equally as well as these beautiful, manicured, perfect looking websites? There is something, you can't be too bad. There's a happy medium. But sometimes the polish will take you away from a particular customer base. It'll throw you into a new customer base. So you better be prepared to now nurture the new customer base that's really expecting that prestige look. Because when you walk away from the people who feel a little more comfortable in the analog world or the more basic website look, mm-hmm. you are making a decision.
Just talking about this right before this on an episode I recorded where sometimes when you're marketing and the product and the offer and how you present that to the correct segment of the market, if all of that stuff is great, the experience doesn't matter. Like the people will buy it because you've already sold them before they got there. They clicked with the intent to buy. The website doesn't need to do any lifting.
I agree. Bravo to whomever you were talking with about that.
Absolutely. It was Aaron from Newton Baby, the world's largest direct-to-consumer baby goods company.
Babies and puppies and animal, those are kind of just fun businesses when you watch them. They can really scale fast. It's, people spend more on their babies than they will on themselves, and they certainly spend more on their pets than they will on themselves.
I do want to just circle back to something you said earlier, and I didn't give it like the proper light shined on it. You mentioned that this scratched that entrepreneurial itch for you, this being NULASTIN in this business, because the fact that it was consumable and led to repeat purchases. That's all I'm looking for too as an entrepreneur if I was going to invest in or build a new business. I think that for those folks listening out there, it's really easy to throw a logo on a t-shirt and say you have a clothing brand, but it's insanely difficult to differentiate yourself against the market unless you are a literal tastemaker with 1 billion followers, right? So what Leah's talking about here is just like there's these core fundamentals to starting especially in e-commerce, like a business that can sustain over time and, last through some of the volatility in the market and the economy that we've experienced in the last decade. Like there's been multiple big, crazy things that have happened. But yeah, how did you know that?
I'm going to give credit to the infomercial world. So when I was midway through my television career, I was traveling 200 days a year, and I started a business called In-Room Fitness Programming. It was called Leah Garcia Fitness Programming. And my idea was that anybody in a hotel room could check in, turn on their TV, the on-demand, and get a workout in. So I had this great concept. That's another one where I mortgaged my house and invested a lot of money. And it didn't work out. I had the numbers on paper. It should have done really well. But the beauty of that is that I also conceptualized product placement. Not that I invented it, but I'd seen it happening in movies where I thought, oh, what I can do is get a sponsor to help me fund this, to put product behind me or wear Nike clothes or whatever it was I was going to do. And while I was pitching some of that product placement at some expos that I went to, I met some individuals who saw me as a bit of a diamond in the rough, and then they hired me for work with one of their infomercials. And the rest was really history, because I started with Slender Tone, which was an abdominal training device, and I went to Contour. And the Contour belt was one that I got to help with all of the ideation of what we wanted to do. This was so much fun, but that company went from $0 to $220 million in the course of about 3 years. But it wasn't just a one-time purchase, Chase. They had gel pads that you needed to place on the back of the ab belt so that it would give you the EMS contraction, so that it would flex the muscles. Without the gel pads that were going to run out about every 4 to 6 weeks, you couldn't keep using the belt. So no matter how many one-offs you would sell. And I thought, ooh, well, isn't this a good business model? So I had a friend who used to tease me because he'd say, Leah, on your grave, it's going to be long-term residual income, because I used to just always talk about what's long-term residual income going to look like for me. And that is just probably a survival thought, because I grew up with a pretty limited means of family money. We grew up on a ranch, and I think my mother and father in their best year probably only ever made $17,000 a year collectively between the two of them. And I don't think I ever wanted for anything, but I also believe that my mother could have lived a much better life had she had just a wee bit more money. And something that wasn't going to run out, right? Because there was that scarcity that they had. So yeah, so I like to think I'm an observer. I'm always looking at what have other people done and what can I learn from that? And then how do I not repeat that, but do this? So that is my MO. That is who and what I am.
That's amazing, Leah. Now, is there anything I haven't asked you about today that you think might resonate with our audience?
Well, we can go into all sorts of stuff now that last comment came. It's really my whole, I'm the age demographic where I still love to pick up a phone. I still love human interaction. I still love that connection. And I'm also hip enough, I think, to be aware that I need the AI and I need all of the automation. So I think it's important for businesses when they're getting their groove to really make sure that you've got someone on their team with some heritage and some legacy experience, because a lot of the new people launching a business, they think they've just invented the wheel, and we've already seen it, done it, thought it, but we're not caught up to where they are, but we come with an awful lot of experience in terms of how to really take care of customers. Based on some just good old Dale Carnegie information, how to win friends and influence people. And we come from a world where we still love having a door open for us. And so I treat my customers with a lot of that old fashioned politeness that I know that they're craving, because that is the demographic that I'm dealing with. But then I'm sassy at times too. So don't push my buttons, because I will bite like a little chihuahua.
That's amazing, Leah. You talked about how amazing this product is. You mortgaged your house, obviously, to get it to market, and it worked out well in the end. But like, if I'm listening to this and I'm curious to learn more about the product, where should I go? What should I do?
Oh, very much so. Very easy. You can go to NULASTIN, NULASTIN.com. And we are also available on Amazon. And the Amazon storefront, we're about ready to move to a distribution model. Because, Chase, I don't wake up every morning and dream about Amazon sales. It does not even enter my mind. So I finally decided to hand that over to people who do. So we're about ready to move into a distribution model for that. And you know what makes me laugh? is that the Amazon storefront right now is still set up on my Leah Garcia well, it's not that one, but it's my AOL account. And so, because that's how I launched the business back in the day, with my AOL account. And so when they take it over, it's finally going to get sunsetted, which, rest in peace, AOL account.
Absolutely. Leah, thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing all of those amazing insights.
Pleasure. Thanks, Chase.
We can't thank our guests enough for coming on the show and sharing their knowledge and journey with us. We've got a lot to think about and potentially add into our own businesses. You can find all the links in the show notes. You can subscribe to the newsletter at honestycommerce.co to get each episode delivered right into your inbox. If you're enjoying this content, consider leaving a review on iTunes. That really helps us out. Lastly, if you're a store owner looking for an amazing partner to help you get your Shopify store to the next level, reach out to Electric Eye at electriceye.io/connect. Until next time.